Akima Brown, welcome. It's so good to see you.
Thank you, Sharon. It's so good to be here.
And there's so much to unpack here, but I have to ask you first. Did you grow up in Delaware? Tell me about how you took this journey back to Delaware, if not.
Sure. I actually am originally a New Yorker. I'm a native New Yorker, and I found my way to Delaware. Quite interestingly, my entire family, for the most part, has begun to migrate. And so from New York. And so I was actually living in Atlanta, working in film and television. And I am the mother of a special needs child. I'm also a caregiver. And so family is really important in terms of community network. And so with most of my family migrating this way, I found myself here.
Akima, how did you develop your interest in media, social justice, and the, junction of those two things?
Oh, that's an awesome question. So, interestingly enough, growing up in New York City, I did not know there was a distinction between arts and activism. And so, I grew up with artists as activists in music, artists as activists in drama, artists and activists in film. And so I just always associated those two things together. And because my family is very arts adjacent, I call them weekend warriors. Everyone, was in a ballet, a play, a band or something, on evenings and weekends. I've just always grown up around that. And so when I became interested in this myself, it just made sense that the thing I've always seen is just exactly where I went to first, is where I gravitated.
I have to give you an atta girl for that one.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Now, I mean, this is kind of a dumb question, but when did you begin to notice this absence of equity and in production? Who got to be in charge? Who got to make the decisions?
Yes.
Whose project got greenlighted?
That was definitely when I left home and I was living in Atlanta doing my undergraduate study. And I began to work with my friends on their different projects and seeing whose projects were taken seriously. I did go to a historically Black college. I went to Spelman College. And so
Wow.
that was the thank you. That was the majority of, my community. However, there were other institutions like Georgia State and Emory that were what we call predominantly white institutions, PWIs. And when it came time for different programs, we would see a great difference in what was actually being promoted and what was being put on in terms of student projects. That was my first real moment of, oh, this is why people are so adamant about activism and social justice in this space.
But Akima, Atlanta is the Mecca for creative Black artists.
Oh,
That's
you would
Tyler
think
Perry
that.
land. Tyler Perry and all of them. Or was this before that?
This was well before that. And on top of that, and I will say this, a lot of times what people will often misunderstand is there's still a level of inequity that takes place when, you consider we can only rattle off a few names. When you think about who's really in charge and you still have a handful of persons of color and compared to their peers.
Of course.
Everyone talks about Tyler Perry, but he's one man in a sea of studios.
And
no, and I say that because I think I think it's so important to shine that light on that. That's why the equity work is still so important, because even though we have made in tremendous strides, we still have a ways to go.
Well, in a pretty long ways also. But let's, these are short interviews. Let's get down to the founding of your nonprofit. Tell us about it.
Awesome. So Real Families for Change is actually a a labor of love for me. It is an organization committed to serving working families in film and television. We're looking at creating equity in that space. We have a particular interest in parents who identify at the intersection of, caregiving, filmmaking, multi-marginalization. And so that really puts us in the space of looking to advocate and make space for ourselves in the industry. A lot of people don't know that, it's not all glitz and glamour in the industry.
Oh, really?
I know firsthand, but unfortunately, many people don't know that it does require a lot of folks to be away from their families for extended periods of time.
I will say, Akima, the technology makes it more accessible now, so there are many, many more people in the game, but that doesn't mean that things are equitable, for sure.
No, absolutely. And I will say this, even for those who are, utilizing that technology, and I absolutely love it, by the way, I love seeing that, but they still are working the way that they have always seen people working. And sometimes that could mean 16, 18-hour days, drowsy driving, things like that. Real Families is really trying to change the scope of how we work and how we center people, treating people like human beings as we do this work. That's the goal.
What a concept. Let's dive into the Delaware Collective for a collective economy, rather creative economy initiatives.
Oh, yes. So the Delaware Collective for Creative Economy is a local initiative of Real Families for Change. One of the goals that we have as an organization is ensuring that we are giving back to the communities that we're in. And since RFC is chartered in Delaware, we wanted to give back here. And so the DCCE, as we lovingly call it, is really looking at this issue of access. One of RFC's pillars is access to the industry. And we really want to ensure that geographic location is not a barrier to Delaware filmmakers. Delaware creatives across the board, but we really have a kind of film-centric sort of focus. But that really is our goal, making sure people can access the industry from right.
I mean, we need an hour to speak, not 10 minutes. And we've sort of eaten into that. How can people find out more about what it is you're doing, get involved, support you?
Absolutely. Please visit us at Real Families. That's real like a movie, real, REEL, families.org. And you can find out all about our different programs and initiatives right there from there. And if you have any questions, you can reach out at hello@realfamilies.org.
And I saw on your website, you also offer grants to young filmmakers. That's pretty attractive.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes, if you are a filmmaker working in the industry or looking to work and need support, yes, please reach out to us and we'll do what we can to support you.
Wow. Akima Brown, I hope you'll come back.
Absolutely, Sharon. Thank you again for having me.
Take care.